Nosey Coworkers Meets Mischievous Boyfriend by WTF is a Brain. A Batman and Flash all-media types fanfic, rated for general audiences, with additional tags for secret relationship, Dick Grayson being a little shit, Wally West is a good boyfriend, Justice League is nosy, gossip, Wally West is the Flash, Dick Grayson is Nightwing, Wally West is in the JL. Basically, I wanted Dick to have fun messing with the JL. Wally is cheering him and suffering, simultaneously. No beta, we die like Wally West. DC stands for disregard canon. Crack treated seriously. The author is laughing hysterically. Bruce Wayne is bad at communicating. Bruce Wayne is bad at feelings. Good parent Bruce Wayne. But his kids bully him. Mostly Dick. Bat Family meets the Justice League. Justice League doesn't know Bruce Wayne is Batman. Summary. Wally is very open with his coworkers, and has mentioned his boyfriend a couple of times. Somehow, they landed on the correct assumption that he is dating son of billionaire Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson. But they don't know Dick is Nightwing, so they end up adding him to their gossip group chat, and Dick is a menace about it. Or, Dick flirts with Wally in costume, and Wally flirts back, so everyone thinks Wally is cheating on Dick with Nightwing. Chapter 1. The Group Chat. For some reason, after a lot of Wally sharing tidbits about his boyfriend with the Justice League, they had unanimously reached the conclusion that he was dating Dick Grayson, not Nightwing. Dick Grayson. They had made a group chat that consisted of the most social members of the JL, minus Wally. This group chat happened to include Nightwing, even though he wasn't really part of the Justice League. There were some members more skeptical than others about Wally dating Dick, because really, it's a weird idea that Wally would be dating the son of the most famous billionaire in America, unless you knew their identities, and most people in the JL didn't. Anytime any of the members of the group chat came close to debunking their theory of Wally and Dick dating, someone would add something that made most of them believe it again. Usually, that someone was Nightwing. He was having the most fun with this. Wally had only realized this was happening behind his back one night at Dick's apartment in Bloodhaven. Dick was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine and a fun rom-com running on the TV, and Wally was at the kitchen island, serving himself a second glass of wine. He couldn't get drunk with it, but he enjoyed the time spent with Dick, and his boyfriend usually drank both their glasses for them, ending at least a little tipsy at the end of the night. Wally knew this wasn't really healthy, but it was healthier than any other coping mechanism Dick rolled with, and there was no point in fighting about it too much. Wally made sure he didn't go overboard, and was safe about his slight drinking habit. Today, they just enjoyed drinks together. Not as a coping mechanism, but as a celebration of another month together, and alive. Dick's phone pinged with a notification, and Wally looked away from his task of more wine and more snacks. Dick picked up his phone from the table and looked at the notification, confused at first, but soon got a glint of mischief in his eyes. Wally smiled softly at the gesture, no longer scared it was an emergency, and continued his task. Dick began typing something furiously as he sipped from his wine, and put it down on the table to continue typing. Wally walked over with the wine and more chips, and promptly sat down next to his boyfriend on the couch. "What's got you all fired up, Bertie?" Wally asked, amused. Dick laughed a little before answering. "The Justice League made a group chat to speculate about your relationship status," Dick said distractedly. "What?" "Right now the winning theory is that you're dating Dick Grayson. I'm backing that one," Dick said, like any of that made sense. "I am dating you, though." "Well, yeah, but they don't know I'm Nightwing." Dick looked at his boyfriend, face full of schemes. In Wally's face, he saw disbelief and amusement. "Let me have some fun." "Alright, as long as no one gets hurt. And don't get me in trouble with Batman, please." Dick giggled in response, making Wally regret his agreement. How did they even get there? "Well, you mention your boyfriend quite often, according to the others," Dick says smugly. "So everyone is trying to figure out who you're dating." "And they added you to their group chat?" "Yeah," Dick answered, chuckling. "It's great. I can steer the conversation. They all thought I would appreciate a lighthearted group chat of gossip." "So, what are you telling them?" "Oh, Just trying to keep them convinced you were dating Dick Grayson, by saying that I saw you in Bloodhaven this week, and didn't come across you in costume. And, well, I publicly live here, so Hal put two and two together. Well, have fun then. Wally answered, a little unsure, and then quickly added, not too much fun. To which Dick only laughed, not making Wally feel too comforted. But no one is getting hurt, and eventually the truth would come out. Chapter 2. Oh, that's not... Nightwing is falling from the roof during a fight. He tries to catch himself, but he's not in a position to do that without causing more damage to his body than simply crashing to the floor, so he braces for impact. But he never touches the floor. Instead, two familiar arms wrap around him. He can feel the warmth radiating from the speedster that caught him, and he can feel both of their breaths of relief at the catching/being caught. Hey there, handsome, Nightwing says, winking under his domino and patting Flash's cheek. You scared me, dumbass, Flash said, exasperated, but still smiling at his gorgeous boyfriend. It's always nice to go back to the basics. Nightwing shrugs, a damsel in distress, and his knight in flashy armor. Ha ha, Flash says sarcastically. Please try not to give me more heart attacks, gorgeous. Flash puts Nightwing on the floor. They have some observers, some more subtle than others, but neither cares to notice, focusing back on the fight. The team fights arduously and efficiently, until the threat is captured and put in charge of the Lantern Corps to take it to the Intergalactic Zoo. The team agrees to regroup at the Watchtower for mission reports. When they get to the Watchtower, minus Hal, Batman orders Nightwing to get to the medbay and everyone else to regroup in the meeting room in an hour. Everyone started walking away, but Nightwing and Flash lingered. I'll be fine, hot stuff, Nightwing said to Flash, and quickly rubbed the ginger's arms soothingly. Stop misdirecting my concern, Flash groans, and moves to follow Nightwing towards the medbay. Superman overheard their conversation and quickly floated to the room he knew most would be lounging around in. There he saw Hal Jordan, already having rejoined them, from his quick detour, on the couch. Green Arrow was next to him, almost falling asleep on top of his wife, who sat next to him, scrolling on her phone. At the table in the room, with a snack and a glass of water, sat Aquaman as he stared into the distance, slowly eating. Next to him sat Martian Manhunter, who appeared to be having a telepathic conversation with Wonder Woman, who was seated in front of him. And finally, on the floor, Captain Marvel sat crisscross applesauce, looking down at the carpet in deep thought. What's got you all frayed, Big Blue? Asked Hal, as he stood there for a bit, looking around. I just saw Nightwing and Flash having a real close interaction. Are we sure Flash is dating Dick Grayson? Superman asked, concerned. Well, Dick Grayson and Wally are publicly dating, Black Canary commented. But what if it's a public stunt or something? Aquaman challenges. Didn't Nightwing say he was really sure Wally was dating Dick Grayson in the group chat? Captain Marvel added. Maybe he's so sure because he and Flash are having an affair. Green Arrow adds jokingly, but his tiredness made him sound more serious than he meant. I also saw them have a tender moment back in the battle, and they called each other flirty names. Hal added. So, they are having an affair? Captain Marvel asked incredulously. I don't know. Neither of them seems the type to cheat, Wonder Woman commented, not really on board with the theory. It's the only thing that makes sense. Hal shrugged. That's so messed up. Green Arrow said with a sigh, and they all looked at Superman, hoping he would do something about it. I'll talk to Flash. Superman sighed and walked towards the kitchen first. He needed some water if he was going to do this. Chapter 3. That moment when the symbol of hope thinks you're a cheater. Flash was walking back to the kitchen, knowing Nightwing was in the good hands of his father in the medbay. That's when he saw Superman approaching from the entrance of the kitchen, too. Hey, Soups, Flash greeted. Here for snacks, too? Superman looked a little startled, probably because the Watchtower was made with the other's more anti-privacy powers in mind, so Superman would not have heard him until they were closer. Flash, I was looking for you, actually. Superman clapped him on the shoulder and steered him inside the kitchen. "I'm here," Flash said, with his usual cheery attitude. "Let me just get a snack and I'm all ears. You look like you need to get something off your chest." Flash went about preparing 4 different snacks at the same time. A sandwich, a bowl of guacamole and chips, a pack of frozen Hot Pockets, and a jar of blueberries. All followed by 2 energy bars made with his metabolism in mind. They didn't taste so good, so he tended to drown them out with other flavors. Superman looked at him like he was trying to solve a giant puzzle. He was reconciling the fact that Barry's sweet, younger nephew was cheating on his boyfriend, and trying to find a way to start the conversation that wouldn't have him bolting. Flash sat down at the table in front of Superman and quickly started to eat his sandwich and protein bar between bites of it. He made a quick sound of acknowledgement towards the older hero, wordlessly asking him to spill his share. "Listen, Wally," he quickly corrected, opting for familiarity. "I know you are young, and young people make mistakes, but don't let one mistake ruin something good and important." Clearly, that was too vague, because Wally simply tilted his head to the side and quickly swallowed his food. "What's this about?" Wally said. "Is this about me, or are you just wanting to talk? Are you practicing for your kid?" Wally finished asking, a little hurriedly. Superman hadn't shared his identity yet, but he had talked about his son, who, according to Wally's calculations, would be a teen very soon. "No, Wally." Superman took a deep breath before continuing. "This is about your relationship. It's not right what you're doing, and as your friend and coworker, I wanted to say something. I know you have Barry, but maybe he hasn't noticed, and I don't want you to not have anyone at least attempt to steer you in a better direction." Wally looked absolutely stumped, completely caught off guard. "What are you talking about, Big Blue? I'm not great at picking up hints. You're gonna have to be more direct than that." Wally's attention was now fully on Superman, mind going at a faster speed than his legs usually went. His food was no longer in his hands, and his mouth was open in a thoughtful way. "I'm talking about you and Nightwing." Superman looked at Wally, waiting for an explanation, but he looked even more confused. Superman misread his body language and thought he looked more guilty. Having an affair is a nasty deal, and maybe you're simply misguided. Do not let quick fun get in the way of a healthy and loving relationship. And if you want to be with Nightwing, break it off with Dick Grayson first. It's not fair to either of them, or to you. Superman looked at Wally, waiting for some sort of reaction, but he just looks mortified. His mouth is fully slack, and his eyes are kind of distant. He is staring at Superman in horror, like he was just told his aunt was hit by a car. "Listen, I know you probably do not want to hear this from me, or probably from anyone," Superman says, a little unsure of his approach now. "But I care about you, and I care about Nightwing, and I don't want you to make misguided decisions. I have my mom and pa to call me out on my bull, and I want to be there for you. If you need anything, you can always come to me, and I will help you no matter what. But I will not coddle you. You are a grown man and responsible for your actions. But if I can help, I will. In any other circumstances, this would be really sweet. And when Wally looks back at it, he will appreciate it. Right now, he is too busy resetting." "A cheater?" Wally says, almost inaudibly, if it wasn't for the man who could hear someone making brownies from across the world sitting in front of him. "I think you need some time to think, kiddo. But, again, if you need me, just holler, okay?" Superman said, patting Wally's shoulder soothingly, as he walks past him to the door. "What the fuck?" Superman heard Wally whisper when he was 3 feet away from the door. Chapter 4. Mortification in the eyes of others is amusing. Wally was baffled. He sat at the table for at least 10 minutes. No more than that. However, when he stood, his legs shook like when you get off a roller coaster. The world felt like it was on its head. He needed to move. He ran to the medbay. There, he found Nightwing, sitting on one of the cots, looking at his phone with a serious expression. Wally slowly approached him, and this got the attention of his boyfriend. "Oh, Hey, Walls. Nightwing waved him over, and Wally increased his pace a little bit more. Nightwing spread his arms slightly, in wait of a hug. However, Wally was still very out of it, so he just plopped on the chair next to Nightwing and stared at the floor with a frown. Babe? Are you okay? Nightwing whispered, rubbing his hand across Wally's shoulder blades soothingly. Did something happen just now? Huh? Oh, yeah, I guess. Wally answered distractedly. Do you want to tell me what happened? Nightwing raised an eyebrow, amused at his boyfriend's distracted response. Superman told me not to cheat on my boyfriend with you. What? Back up. When? Why? He knows we're together. Just now, in the kitchen. I went to get snacks, and he said he wanted to talk to me, and told me not to throw away a good relationship for a bit of fun with you. I don't even know how he came to the conclusion that Nightwing and Flash are a thing, but I only talk about Dick and not you. Like, well, you know what I mean. Wally, please breathe. Nightwing said with a chuckle, as he understood the situation. Don't laugh, Wally whined. This is mortifying. It's not that bad. It's really funny, actually. Nightwing squeezed Wally's shoulder and laughed lightly. I'm never gonna live this down. This is really a good opportunity to fuck with them, Nightwing said mischievously. At my expense, right? Nightwing only laughed at him, confirming all of Wally's worries. If it bothers you too much, I won't mess with them about it, and we can be fully professional around everyone. Nightwing sweetly added in Wally's ear. But I want you to be aware of the fuckery opportunity we would be missing. I mean, we could fuck with the Justice League enough to make B actually tell people our secret identities. I hate that you can always convince me of anything. Is that a let's fuck with them? Nightwing asked with puppy dog eyes. Fine, I guess. Wally smiled a little. I'll try not to be bothered by being called a cheater. He glared. Oh, baby, I know you'd never cheat on your wonderful, perfect boyfriend, Dick Grayson. Nightwing joked. I hate you. Good, because if you loved me, then that would be cheating. You're the worst, Wally complained as he left the medbay as quickly as his boyfriend let go of his shoulders. As he crossed the barrier of the room, he could hear the sound of his lover's laughter following him out into the hallway. Chapter 5. Date? Nah, scheming session. Beware, less than 3. Babe, I'm in here. I'm getting bored. Maybe I'll kiss the next guy I see. Fastest man alive, winky face. Said the guy that would never cheat on me, right? Beware, less than 3. Hey, I never said that. I said you would never cheat on me. As Dick hit send, his boyfriend materialized in front of him, in the alley where he was waiting. They had planned a date in a new Central City cafe, which Wally had found while walking around on a boring day. As soon as he appeared, he gave Dick a big hug and was eagerly reciprocated with kisses to his cheek, forehead, and ear. They stood there for a second, and when they separated, they held hands as they started walking, not even talking about where they were going. At this point, they basically knew what the other was going to do, most of the time, because both of them had a streak of being unpredictable from time to time. I don't think you were gonna see many guys to kiss in an empty alleyway, Wally teased. Obviously, I was waiting for a specific guy to kiss in the alley, Dick replied cheekily. I'm so excited to show you this place. It opened only a couple of weeks ago, and it totally rocks. They have live music sometimes, too. We should go to one of those nights. Apparently they have a small local band play, because the owner's kid has his own band, and tells his friends about the cafe. So, Wally continued to ramble about the new cafe at a fast normal guy speed, and Dick simply listened to him, adding things here and there as they approached the cafe. The sudden change in topics might have confused some other person, but Dick and Wally often teased each other. They knew how to easily navigate conversations with each other, when to change topics, what not to talk about around each other, what kinds of details the other would be most interested in, and they were masters of each other's languages. They shared everything, and didn't have secrets from one another, since Dick had revealed his identity in their Titan days. They could go weeks, or months, without talking or seeing each other, and when they reunited, they picked up where they had left off. When they started dating, it was a little rough at first, because their dynamic flowed so well, and they both thought they had to be more involved, and soon they realized that their relationship was theirs to define, and nothing changed from when they were just friends. More stuff simply got added. "You find a table, and I'll order our usuals?" Wally guest asked. "Okay. Can you also get me something to eat, please?" Dick asked, thankful that the decision of their table was up to him. He never liked to sit where he couldn't see the exits in a closed room, and he liked to at least be able to control what his field of vision was. "'Kay," Wally said, and approached the front to order. Dick walked around a little, looking at all the decorations around the cafe. Wally was right. This place was really cool. It had a small stage that currently had 3 tables for 2, and the walls were filled with bookshelves people were free to pick from, and the ceiling had hanging plants draped around the piping. It seemed like the building used to be a factory, due to the lack of covered pipes, and the worn-out floor, and rows between workstations. Dick made a mental note to look up what kind of stuff they used to make here. He walked around a little bit more, looking at the books, and found a table for 2 in a nice corner where the whole cafe could be seen. As he thumbed through the books of small monologues, Wally approached with a small tray of 2 pastries and 2 drinks. "I got us a chocolate croissant and a ham and cheese one. I'll eat either, so you pick which one you want." Wally smiled brightly, putting down the tray and their respective drinks in front of them. Dick smiled at his boyfriend. He wasn't feeling very talkative today, and Wally picked up on this, quietly resuming their conversation from earlier that had deviated to talk about Wally's day job and a new intern that had been hired, who was, according to Wally, the loudest, most annoying, but somehow really nice girl that never shut up about her classes in college. Wally laughed as he told Dick all sorts of stories about his job, from the random order of donuts they got from their boss, to their newest case mishaps, and all the juicy gossip about his coworkers. Dick laughed along, and asked questions here and there, as he ate half of the ham and cheese croissant, and half of the chocolate one. He told a story or 2 of his own job, and lightheartedly complained about his family here and there. As their date went on, and they got more pastries to try, Dick became more talkative, and remembered his evil master plan. He waited for Wally to bring up the League, and how weird they had been around him lately, to let Wally in on his scheme. "Okay, but hear me out. B hears everyone talking about me, as a homewrecker, and is forced to reveal who I am, if only to stop them from talking about me like that to him." Dick finished explaining with a flourish of his hands. Wally laughed incredibly bright at his boyfriend's antics and weird, convoluted plan. "It's genius." "Or," Wally added, still gasping for air, "you could tell your dad you want the team to know you. Where's the fun in that?" At this reply, Wally laughed even louder, making a couple of people look at them, and someone took a picture, but they didn't care. "Making B suffer is kind of my job, you know?" After a little more talking about the plan, Wally agreed to be part of it. First of all, he was physically incapable of saying no to Dick's puppy face, and second of all, if he said no, Dick would just make an even more convoluted plan to torture his father, and leave Wally in the dark about it, in petty revenge. Chapter 6. Batman loses hair thanks to his oldest. Wally followed the plan to the best of his ability, mentioning his boyfriend casually around the Justice League. "So the other day my boyfriend and I went to a super cute cafe in Central City, and we're talking about going again sometime, when they have live bands." Wally mentioned in a conversation with Hal about their weeks. "I can't wait to see him soon. My boyfriend took up a job as a gymnastics teacher, and all the kids love him." Wally mentioned some other time. "He's so good with kids. You know, my boyfriend's favorite color is also blue," he said to Nightwing some other time, when they were in a big group discussion about favorite colors. Nightwing had to fight not to laugh. Wally mentioned his boyfriend a lot more now, and more insignificant details about him, but no one suspected anything. Or at least, they hadn't said anything to Wally. In fact, the group chat they made was so quiet that Dick hacked into their phones and realized that they had made a new group chat without him. They started to talk about how shameless Nightwing had been flirting with Wally at every interaction, when he knew Wally was taken. The other JL members had started to take pity on Wally, and subtly got him away from the conversations with Nightwing and gave him nasty looks here and there. Dick pretended not to be affected, but he was more affected than he liked to admit. It was his idea, after all. No use backing out. Instead, he got a little more physical with the flirting. They were all crowded in one of the big, communal areas of the watchtower, in a rare moment, when even Batman joined them after a mission. Everyone was doing their own thing, but in each other's presence. It was nice, but also a perfect opportunity to bring Batman closer to the breaking point. So far, he hadn't said anything about what his son was doing, knowing he probably didn't want to get involved. But he was aware of what people were starting to call Nightwing behind his back. Not that Batman was in the group chat, but, well, he's Batman. Of course he knows everything about his children. Nightwing stood up from the floor and announced he was getting water, and asked if anyone wanted anything from the connected kitchen. Wally, of course, asked for an energy bar. When Nightwing came back with a bottle of water for himself, an ice pop for Captain Marvel, and an energy bar for Wally, he sat right next to his boyfriend on the couch. This made a couple of people subtly start watching them. "Here you go, handsome," Nightwing said, not very loud, but in a quiet room of superheroes, everyone heard every word. "Thanks, Nightwing." Wally tried to sound normal, but he was itching to kiss his boyfriend, so he ended up sounding really awkward. He kept talking to mask that. "That mission was so tiring, and we didn't even have to fight that much. I'm gonna need so many more of these bars to stay awake in my night shift at my job. I wish I could just call out, but I already did that a lot this month." "Flash, breathe, and eat your bar." Nightwing interrupted him with a hand on his arm, and he moved closer, basically resting on Wally's shoulder, and closed his eyes, pretending not to notice how everyone looked around at each other. Wally simply focused on eating his bar, and as he kept chewing, he got more and more sleepy until he fell fully asleep, with his head lolling towards Nightwing. Batman took a sneaky photo of them with one of the security cameras. He knew Dick would like to frame it sometime. Consequently, he almost missed the scoff that came from Aquaman, directed at his son and his boyfriend, but he chose to ignore it for the sake of the secret of Nightwing and Batman's connection. Wally was woken up by Superman's voice, arguing with someone. Well, maybe he doesn't know about Flash's boyfriend. He was literally in the group chat when we came to that conclusion. The voice of Green Arrow argued back. "What group chat?" The gravelly voice of Batman asked. Everyone stayed silent for a little too long, not to look incriminating. "We made a group chat to speculate who is Flash's boyfriend?" Captain Marvel finally broke the silence, a bit sheepish. "Nightwing was in it, but said Flash was definitely dating Dick Grayson." Wally felt Nightwing shake more than minutely, not even perceived by the supers in the room, with silent laughter. Wally groaned inwardly. Batman grumbled. Wally couldn't see him, but was sure that the man was covering up some frustrating emotions that sounded like the mantra, "Why did I adopt so many kids?" "We're just worried that Nightwing might be interfering with Flash's relationship, whether because he doesn't know or because he lacks Flash," Superman added, addressing Batman. "Nightwing doesn't seem like someone who would just encourage someone to cheat on their partner," Wonder Woman added with a strong note to her voice. "Can't judge a book by its cover," Aquaman's voice commented. "And even if he's just flirting for fun and not hoping Flash breaks up with his boyfriend for him, it's still disrespectful to Flash and to Dick Grayson." Green Arrow's voice sounded personally offended. "Well, if they appear on TV together and Nightwing is flirting, and Dick Grayson sees it on TV, and that causes problems between them, even if Flash doesn't reciprocate, it could cause them to fight." Green Lantern's voice comes up again. Batman gets up again, and starts walking to the connected kitchen as they all descend into a gossip fit on ways Dick Grayson could react to feeling like Flash cheated. Someone even commented that maybe Dick Grayson would want a threesome. Batman dies a little on the inside hearing this, and Nightwing also blows his "totally asleep" cover with laughter. Wally just wonders why his coworkers are so weird. When Batman finally, after what feels like an eternity, reaches the door to the connected kitchen, He looks back at all of them. "None of that is going to happen. Nightwing is my son." He basically strangles out. They all look at him with wide eyes. No one even notices how Nightwing stiffens at the display of honesty from his dad. Batman leaves them all gaping, and goes into the kitchen. He takes a moment to drink water, open a granola bar, breathe deeply, curse out his children in order of acquisition, realize that he didn't take his laptop with him, and that there is no exit from the kitchen to the hallway, just back to the commune area, and think about how panicked he was that the information just tumbled out of his mouth. When he finally regains his ability to think about anything other than cursing the moment he joined the Justice League, he re-enters the room. Everyone is silent as he walks towards his computer, but as he sits down, Captain Marvel breaks the silence. "He's your son?" he says, almost like he's saying it to himself. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Secret identities." Batman grumbles. "How old are you?" Green Lantern asks, and Green Arrow elbows him in the ribs. Batman ignored him. "That doesn't explain anything about the situation with Flash, Batman," Superman stated. "Why does Nightwing being your son have anything to do with this?" Batman didn't know either. He just wanted them to stop talking about his son like that. "Yeah, Spooky. Just because he's your son doesn't mean he can behave like a whore," Green Lantern said. Multiple people in the room make loud sounds of disapproval. "What? It's true. Don't call him that," Batman said definitively. It all but incinerated Lantern with his glare. The shadows almost seemed to grow around him. "While I don't agree with calling people that word, Hal," Superman said, in a reprimand, and an attempt to dissolve the animosity, "I do think maybe then you should talk with Nightwing. As his dad, he would listen to you if you talked to him about getting in between Flash and his boyfriend." Batman gathered his things and walked away without saying another word. He did think about how ironic it is that Superman said that, because if Bruce said anything about his sons or daughter, Kaz would be the most likely to listen, but not guaranteed. Or other quasi-children, they would do the opposite of what he advised, just because he's their dad and he said so. Superman was sure he heard Batman sigh as he moved down the hallway. But maybe he was imagining things. Batman doesn't sigh. He glowers and grumbles. If you enjoyed this fic, you can go down to the description below and follow the link to the author's original work. Leave them many comments and kudos. If you enjoyed this reading, you can subscribe if you want, or go down to the comments below and tell me what else I should read. Have a great day.